Now odejdu.
I'm sure it's correct.
Tak.
Okay.
Yes, it is.
We had our morning section and President Sokolowski with lecture conceptual issue in cosmology in conceptual.
Thank you. So, I remind you what was shown at the end of yesterday's lecture. It was the problem of horizon. So, this is this scheme, assuming that before recombination, the early universe in this epoch or era, the evolution is standard on ultra-relativistic matter, and then after recombination we have also standard evolution in a galactic era with matter treated as a non-relativistic dust. We obtain the situation as it is presented here. The particle horizon at recombination is this cylinder delineated here by these two red lines, and it is defined by this past light cone of this point on the at the recombination, while what we observe in WMAP and other measurements, we observe the last scattering sphere. Here it is represented by points N and S. Again, it is determined by light cone, past light cone of our present position at E0. And we learn, we know that the diameter of this relic sphere, of this relic sky sphere, from the distance, proper distance from N to S, is much larger than the size, the diameter of the particle horizon at T recombination. It means the distance between C and D. This relic sky is about 50 times larger than the size of the particle horizon. So this means that if we assume there was this picture, it disappeared. Yeah. It disappeared, so I will make it once again. So, it is our position in space which is not altered since the Big Bang. Here we have the last scattering sphere, what we observe by radio astronomy measurements. And if we take at some point here, and if we assume that at this point started some process, physical process, smoothing out process, we know that the particle horizon will be very small in comparison with this large sphere. And only in this region the matter up to recombination will be smoothed out. So here we will obtain this way Robertson-Walker geometry and a uniform distribution of matter. If a similar process, smoothing out process, started here, it also gave the same result in this sphere of the same radius. But because originally here and here there were different physical states, it means different curvature, different matter energy density, so that smoothing out gives here and here completely different values. So, assuming that the universe was originally highly irregular, and some process smoothing out started somewhere, up to now it is impossible to smooth out the the relic sky. So we should, in observations of cosmic background relic radiation, we should observe that this sphere is highly irregular, contrary to what we see. This is the horizon problem. I stressed that it does not exist if, as it is presented here in this figure above, that the Robertson-Walker geometry is valid almost for all times, almost immediately after the Big Bang, and also that the matter distribution is uniform. Then the fact that the particle horizon is much smaller than the relic sky is completely harmless. The problem only appears when we okay, thank you. The problem only appears when we believe that if we introduce this concept of horizon problem, so if we believe in this conjecture which appeared very soon after the advent of physical cosmology, after the discovery of the relic radiation, it was this conjecture that in grand unification era, the space-time arised from the first era, this quantum gravity era, and this space-time was highly irregular, so we can say it was a generic solution of Einstein field equations, and then that soon after it, say about 10 to minus 42 seconds after the Big Bang, there was a smoothing process which started at one point in space. There's no sense to assume that this smoothing out process started almost simultaneously in the whole space, because this gives us no explanation, because then instead of explaining why the universe is smooth, Robertson-Walker, we should explain why this process started simultaneously everywhere. So this is no solution. We must assume that it starts by some cause at one place and tries to smooth out the whole universe, at least our last scattering sphere. And the problem is that it turns out that up to the recombination, only one disk, as here, such as it is here presented, this intersection of this relic sky and the particle horizon gives us such a small disk which is smooth out, while everywhere otherwise it is highly irregular. So this is the horizon problem. And this conjecture that there was such a smoothing out process is just excluded by isotropy of the relic radiation. In other words, we can say that gravitational expansion does not give the early universe enough time to equilibrate. This is said in more precise terms. So the conclusion is such that the Robertson-Walker geometry of the universe cannot be the outcome of whatever kind, but a locally initiated smoothing process. This geometry, this very specialized geometry, must have been present in the whole space very soon after the Big Bang. Of course, how soon it is unclear. So this is the horizon problem. However, the cosmology applied in, so I stress this is the problem if we believe that the universe should be created from the initial singularity as a highly irregular generic solution of Einstein equations. If we believe that there was some physical law which he made a lot of good work, so it was very good physicist, and he recognized that first, if we observe the matter density and we determine the density parameter omega, we see that observations show that this present value omega 0 is very close to 1. Geometrically, it means that we have that the space is practically 0. But this means that observations are inherently ambiguous. It is a problem that we shall never determine by observations of the matter density. Perhaps some other observation might establish what is true, but only by observations of matter density, we will never determine whether omega is above 1, so the space is closed free sphere, or omega is slightly below 1 and the space is open hyperbolic, or mathematicians call it Lobachevsky space, or omega is precisely exactly equal to 1, it is Euclidean space. It is impossible to determine which of these three possibilities occur. And what is important is that, in fact, the number of three spheres is infinite because these are spheres with different radii. The number of hyperbolic spaces is also infinite because it depends on one parameter which may have infinite number of values. But Euclidean space is only one, so it is exactly on the border. So we don't know. The possibility that we are exactly on the border is practically 0. So it means that we should be slightly beyond the border, but we don't know, and we will never know on which side of this border. So this is highly perplexing that we cannot determine in which space we live. Then, this is one part of this problem. The other is following. If we use these notions which are commonly used in cosmology, the critical density, Hubble functions, and density parameter, we can take a Friedmann equation as it is, and we can recast it using these three notions to such a form that omega minus 1 is such an expression, where all omega h and r are functions of time. Well, now if we take a modulus of this expression and take its time derivative, we see that this derivative of modulus of omega minus 1 has this form. So this means that if we are in standard cosmology, and then r dot is positive, the universe decelerates, so this is negative, so this derivative is positive. So this means that modulus omega minus 1 is a growing function. And this is a problem. Why? Because if so, we obtain that this function behaves linearly in time, and you obtain that this modulus in the early universe evolves in this form, linearly in time. So if we take, for instance, time equal 1 second, it is the beginning of radiation era, rather late time in the early universe, because after about 50 to 100 seconds, we have the annihilation process of electron-positron annihilation. About 3 minutes after the Big Bang, we have primordial nucleosynthesis, so it is quite late time. So at this time, we find that omega minus 1 is 10 to minus 17. So this means that if we take the initial conditions at t equal 1 second, this value is very small, so these are very special initial conditions, very special. So the problem, so the flatness problem is why is omega 0 so close to 1? Or equivalently, why the density parameter at the beginning of radiation era is about 1 plus minus 10 to minus 17. So this is the flatness problem. Because if, for instance, if today omega 0 were 10 to minus 3 or 10 to 5, so it was definitely different from 1, then the universe would be a generic solution, of course, within the Robertson-Walker spacetime, we assume Robertson-Walker, but in this class of solutions would be a generic solution, and of course measurements of density, even with large observational errors, would be unambiguous. We would definitely know whether we are in closed or in open universe. But if now it is very close to 1, we don't know and we will never know. So this is the problem, the flatness problem, and this flatness problem is, in fact, it may be shown it is equivalent to the question why the universe is so large and so old. For instance, if we live in a closed universe, why it lives for more than 10 billion years. The second problem, or the in total third problem, is the so-called the monopole problem, or it is a special case of so-called exotic relics problem. So the problem is following. We have first quantum gravitation era, then we have the next era when the classical space-time appears. We have this grand unification era. It corresponds to energies and temperatures about 10 to 16 GeV. According to grand unification ruled at that time, according to these theories, there was a copious production of many exotic particles, and most important of them, there were so-called magnetic monopoles. Magnetic monopoles is just a particle which is a charge of magnetic field, like electron is a particle carrying electric field. The standard physics tells us that there are no magnetic monopoles, but according to the standard physics. But grand unified theories predict existence of such particles, these magnetic monopoles. These are very heavy particles, and what is very important, they are stable particles. And if we look on their evolution after the grand unification era, it may be shown that interacting particles can create other particles of the same kind or other kinds. So, for instance, in collisions of protons, of course at much lower energies, we can have production of neutrons, standard model. So in this sense, the theory says that if we believe in these theories, that these magnetic monopoles should be produced in a large amount, and what is important, they survived up to now, and this would mean that the energy density of the universe is not dominated by ordinary matter, but by these monopoles. It was recognized first by Russian physicist Yakov Zeldovich in 1978. So this is a real problem. Both flatness problem and monopole problems are real problems. Now, there is a solution to these problems called inflation. And first, how this inflation solves the horizon problem. So I remind you that the horizon problem comes from the fact that the size of the relic sky, what we observe in measurements, is much larger than the diameter of particle horizon. So this smoothing process could not work. And this problem, this horizon problem, is easily solved if we change some assumptions concerning the evolution of the early universe. So we assume that after the recombination galactic era, the evolution is standard. It is rather hard to change this assumption, but we can make some manipulations in the early universe, and we assume that between Big Bang and recombination, the expansion was much faster than linear in time. According to the standard model, it was R developed as square root of time. If we assume that the expansion was much faster than linearly in time, we can obtain that the diameter of particle horizon at recombination is larger than the size of last scattering sphere. So the idea is to introduce so-called inflationary epoch. You will see that there is no point in discussing in details the physics of this process. I only try to present the idea and explain what can be done and what are the problems. So we introduce this inflationary epoch. It means that we take a very short period in the very early universe, and we assume that in this inflationary epoch, there was a very fast, practically exponential growth of the cosmic scale factor. Assuming that this scale factor was growing so fast, we can obtain that the radius of the particle horizon is so large that the horizon problem disappears. So we make the following. Assumptions concerning the early universe. Again, we assume and also for simplicity that the space is flat. So first, from about almost zero up to some time t1, the matter is ultra-relativistic, so it is the standard, so we have the standard evolution. Then, for a short period between t1 and t2, the scale factor grows z times, so at t2 it is z times at t1. We assume that, but what is important that we assume that z is very large. The lowest possible boundary is 10 to 8, but it should be much larger. So we have short period of fast expansion. Then after this inflationary epoch, for times larger than T2 and 2 recombination, we have ultra-relativistic matter with the standard evolution, and in the galactic era, we again have the standard evolution. So the picture is as here. It is similar to what was shown before, but with some modification. So first, we assume that again we are on this world line, starting here at 0 from the Big Bang. Here we have this future light cone of this point 0. It determines us the particle horizon at recombination. This is the space at recombination, and the particle horizon at these two lines. So this particle horizon intersects the space at recombination points C and D. So these points form this causal limit sphere at recombination. Here we have the past light cone of us. So N and S from the sphere of the last scattering. So what we see in the measurements, and we try to obtain that the distance, proper distance from C to D is larger than from N to S. So this would be a solution to the horizon problem, if it is possible. So here we assume that here we have some time T1. From 0 to T1 we have standard ultra-relativistic evolution. From T1 to T2 we have inflationary epoch, very fast expansion. Then from T2 to recombination, again there is standard evolution. Okay, so So again, using the same notation, we have the this diameter of this relic sky, the same formula as I have shown you yesterday, because nothing is changed. So this is the expression present time and recombination, depends on these two times. Then the diameter of, once again, the diameter of the radial coordinate of points of C and D, determining the position of a particle horizon, is determined by this integral, by this integral. This is the diameter to scale factor times the radial coordinate, and this radial coordinate is determined by integrals from 0 to T1 of R over R, then from T1 to T2, and from T2 to recombination. I have divided into three integrals, because in each of these periods the R is given by a different function. So first we assume that this inflationary epoch was very short, so in fact we can just reject this integral. Its contribution is negligible. Now, then we take only this integral from 0 to T1 and from T2, which is practically the same as T1, to recombination, and we obtain such an expression for the size, the diameter of the particle horizon. And this is exact formula, assuming that this integral may be neglected. So assuming that z is very large, of course, we can then omit this one here. And assuming that z is larger than this expression, which is related to this one, and this expression is much larger than 1, we obtained that the ratio of the relic sphere to the diameter of particle horizon is smaller than 1, what we wish. Well, so assuming that such an inflationary epoch existed, we can solve the horizon problem. What is here is a free parameter, is only this time T1, which is almost the same as the end of this inflationary period, inflationary epoch. So this is free parameter, and of course it is limited. It is dependent on the model dependent, and it is limited by known physics and our observations. This means that we cannot assume that the inflation started too late, because it would contradict some observations and our knowledge about physics. For instance, if we take T1, 1 second, it is the remind you, it is the beginning of the radiation era, we obtain that Z, the lowest bound is at 10 to 8, but this time, it is too late. It is excluded because we know quite well what was going on in the beginning of radiation era, and also slightly before it in lepton era. There's no space there physically for inflation at that time. So we must take much earlier times, because the closer we come to the Big Bang, the little we know about physics of the universe. So if we are in a very early epoch, for instance, in the first classical era, it means the grand unification era, we know very, very little about physics, about physical processes occurring in this era, so we can assume that very exotic processes took place. For instance, inflation took place. So typical typical models of inflation are very, very different. But most models, and typical, I would say, typical model assumes that inflation starts at 10 to minus 36 seconds and ends at 10 to minus 32. Then this Z must be 10 to 26. And most of these models assume that the simplest evolution is just exponential scale factors, exponential function which starts at the beginning of inflation. A is constant, H is the Hubble constant, which is really constant and not only constant in its name. Delta T is the time interval of this epoch, and H is given by this formula. For instance, if we take these values of T1 and T2, we obtain that the Hubble constant during inflation was 2 times 10 to 53 kilometers per second per megaparsec. So it is 51 orders of magnitude larger than the present value of the Hubble constant. And it is typical that we here, when we see inflation, we have very huge numbers, as they are characteristic for inflation. And this is, of course, the reason why this epoch was called inflation, because it reminds the standard inflation in economics. So in this sense, the inflation solves the horizon problem. Now the problem is, the question is whether it solves the flatness problem, and the answer is yes, it solves. Well, so I remind you that the flatness problem is why the density parameter at the beginning of radiation era was 10 plus minus 10 to minus 17. I remind that modulus of omega minus 1 varies in time according to this expression. If we take inflationary epoch, we have again r dot is positive, acceleration is positive. So it means, because we have here minus sign, it means that modulus, this derivative is negative, and this means that the omega minus 1 is a decreasing function. While in the standard cosmology it is growing function. So we can assume that at the beginning of the inflationary era, omega was very different from 1. What means that we had a generic solution in the class of Robertson-Walker spacetimes. This is a generic initial condition. Then, during the inflation, this function decreases, and it may be computed. I will not discuss all this formula. It shows that the end of inflation at T2, this modulus of omega minus 1 is given by this expression here. We have this time interval for the inflation, the increase z multiplied by logarithm z times this a, this constant, which is determined by the cosmic scale factor at T1. And we obtained that this such expression 10 to minus 110 in units in kilometers over A. Unless we assume that A was very, very small, so that it was so this all the expression is large, we obtain that this the difference omega at T2 minus 1 is almost exactly to 0. After inflation, for times larger than T2, we have a standard evolution, so this function grows, but because at the beginning it was very close to 0, so we can obtain, for instance, for 1 second this strange number. So in this sense, inflation solves the flatness problem. Now, It turns out that inflation solves also this monopole problem, why the present universe is not dominated by magnetic monopoles. Well, it means before inflation we have the standard evolution, so we have this standard expression for the energy density of all matter, including, of course, magnetic monopoles. I draw your attention to the fact that this expression contains no arbitrary constants. This is just determined by the fact that it must evolve as 1 over t squared, and that this factor is determined only by the equation of state. If we have ultrarelativistic matter, pressure is 1/3 of matter density, then we must have this expression. So there are no initial conditions. This is the universal expression. Now, assuming that there is standard evolution, so from time 10 to minus 36 to 10 to minus 32, rho decreases 10 to 8 times. Of course, the density decreases. But if there were inflation between this time and this time, we see that the density, energy density, decreases. All volumes increase by z2 cubed. So if we take z 10 to 26, we obtain that at the end of inflation, the energy density is 78 orders of magnitude smaller than at the beginning. Huge number. So this means that because originally these monopoles were contained in this energy density at T1, so after this multiplied by this factor, we see that monopoles are diluted. So we can safely say that now in the volume of our Milky Way there's less than 1 monopole. So there is no surprise that we cannot find experimentally magnetic monopoles. However, there's the problem that this dilution applies to all matter, not only to magnetic monopoles and other exotic particles which we do not observe. But this means that all matter is diluted. So this means that if we take the primordial matter, standard matter before inflation, it is after the inflation it is absolutely diluted as magnetic monopoles. So now the universe should be practically empty. So this is the problem. We solve the magnetic monopole problem, but the solution is too good. It's too good. Well, so what to do? So this means that we must make a concept how this inflation took place, to try to describe at least in to try to present at least in qualitative terms how this process looked like physically. So the scenario which is commonly accepted by those who believe in inflation says that first, standard from Big Bang to the beginning of inflation, we have standard expansion driven by ultra-relativistic primordial matter, R is square root of T. But beyond the standard matter which we know, there is so-called inflaton field with some energy. But before T1, the energy density of ordinary matter is larger than the energy density of inflaton, so matter drives the evolution. But the energy density of matter decreases as scale factor to 4 power, while the energy density of inflaton may decrease at a lower rate. So after T1, the inflaton energy dominates, and the universe starts to move. It turns out that there is accelerated expansion, R, say, behaves exponentially. So during this inflation, we obtain that all matter and magnetic monopoles get diluted because all volumes get huge, so the space comes almost empty. And close to the end of inflation, at times close to T2, the inflaton field turns out not to be stable, but it decays, it disappears. But because it had a large energy, this energy does not disappear, but it is converted into elementary particles, into the standard matter. So the inflaton field disappears, its energy is converted into ordinary matter. Of course, this matter, it is chaotic matter, but these particles mutually interact, and in short time they get this is a plasma. This plasma get thermalized, and after larger times, after the inflation terminates, we get the hot ultra-relativistic plasma at thermodynamic equilibrium. This plasma drives the evolution the standard way. So this means that now the universe, all the matter which we observe in the universe, including us, is this recurrent matter, particles which were created from the inflaton field. The primordial matter which emerged from the Big Bang disappeared. It means that it is diluted so that we cannot find it. And all the matter, everything that exists now was created at the end of inflationary epoch from this inflaton field. So this solves the problem that the universe is not empty, because the energy of the inflaton field was converted into standard matter. Well, I think it's a good idea at this moment to make 5 minutes break.
5 minutes, no more. We can start?
Yeah, of course.
So we start the next part.
So, this is what is shown here. It is the simplest, absolutely the simplest version of physical inflationary scenario. There are many models of inflation which differ in some parts. For instance, you see that inflation dilutes the primordial matter, so there's no need to assume that the matter before inflation was the same matter as we know. We can assume the inflation sweeps out all traces of what was before it, so we don't know, and it's almost sure that we will never know what was before inflation, assuming that it took place, so we can assume everything that occurred before it. So there are, and many models apply this fact. What is important that inflation expands the universe, and then this inflaton field must decay, and its energy is converted into standard matter. So all the universe is made up of this recurrent matter, which appeared as a product of inflation, not from the Big Bang. Now, so we can say that first, this inflation does solve the problem of flatness problem and monopole problem. However, if we look closer on what I was telling in the last few minutes about the solution of the horizon problem, we see that it is not a genuine solution. It's not a genuine solution. Why? Because this solution assumes from the very beginning that Robertson-Walker geometry was valid almost from the Big Bang. And I stress that in Robertson-Walker geometry, the horizon problem does not exist because matter and geometry are smooth, homogeneous, and isotropic from the very beginning. So there is no need for smoothing out. So the horizon problem does not exist, and inflation, in this sense, inflation is not necessary for if we assume the homogeneity from the very beginning, then inflation is not necessary. It is necessary for the flatness and monopole problem. So in this sense, this solution using inflation of the horizon problem is a very elegant solution of non-existent problem. So what would be really needed would be to show that if we take a generic solution of Einstein equations, means that we have an irregular distribution of matter and irregular curvature of space-time, and that if we assume that this space-time starts from a kind of initial singularity, however its nature would be very unclear because nature of these singularities which appear in general relativity may have completely different, very distinct properties, different, for instance, from Big Bang singularity. So assuming that this universe emerges from initial singularity, that we can introduce inflation, and that inflation really solves the horizon problem. But no such proof exists. So in fact, the horizon problem, in this sense that the universe starts from as a generic solution, remains unsolved. We cannot show that inflation would allow not smooth out, but at least allow for smoothing out the universe. So this problem remains unsolved. Then there are other problems with physical inflation. I will start with a book by a very famous physicist, Steven Weinberg. I believe that most of you know this name. He wrote a quite good book, Cosmology. He wrote more than 40 years ago a book on gravitation and cosmology, which is much better than this later book, but also this later book, Cosmology, in 2008, is quite good. And he says that so far the details of inflation are unknown, and the whole idea of inflation remains a speculation, though one that is increasingly plausible. So in my opinion, this statement is rather mild. It's very mild criticism, stating that inflation is in its initial stage, but he believes that all these difficulties will be overcome. However, the physical nature of inflation is very vague. First, the first question is, what is inflaton? What is inflaton? I said there is an inflaton field. Then what is inflaton? Most models assume that it is a scalar field because it is the simplest construction. There are some also models where inflaton is a vector field. I have even saw a paper that is a tensor field, but then all calculations are much more complicated. So most models assume that it's scalar field. The problem is that in nature we know only exactly one scalar field. It is Higgs field. The field forming the basis for the standard model of particles. This Higgs field is the field which allows all other particles acquire mass. So it is very important. This field was discovered 4 years ago, after almost 50 years of search. So there's all other fields in nature are not scalar. The only scalar field is a Higgs field, and this field is different from inflaton. Or more correctly, it would be said that inflaton cannot be the Higgs field. So this means that we introduce into physics a new field, inflaton field, which is completely beyond the standard model of elementary particles. So it does not fit the laboratory physics, because according to particle physics, what we can see and check in laboratories, there's no need for inflaton field. It is introduced only for needs of cosmology. So cosmology says physics that there should be a new species of matter, this inflaton field. This is something new. Usually physics would say astronomy what kinds of matter may be observed. Here is the opposite. Cosmology says that there should be a new kind of matter. Then, assuming that something like inflaton exists, so we ask, how is inflaton dynamically described? So it means how we describe its evolution, its dynamics. Now, the tenet of modern physics is that all fundamental constituents of matter are quantum fields. All matter has quantum nature. And there are, in fact, no classical fields, no classical matter. Everything has quantum nature. These quantum fields are described by quantum field theory. So this means that inflaton must be a quantum field. However, there is a problem that inflation, if it took place at all, it occurred in a very early universe where the gravitational field was very rapidly varying. Space-time was very strongly curved, and this field was very rapidly varying in time. And the problem is that quantum field theory, so this theory of all fundamental constituents of matter, is well developed and firmly corroborated by experiments only in Minkowski space-time. In fact, we have no consistent, formulation of quantum field theory in a curved space-time. So this is the main fundamental problem of modern fundamental physics, that we have. It is based on two pillars. One is quantum field theory, the other one is general relativity, and it is very difficult to make a union of these two theories. In practice, we have no quantum field theory in a given curved space-time. It was attempts to construct quantum field theory in a curved space-time have more than 40 years. It was after the introduction of this famous Hawking radiation from black holes. It was 1975. People started because Hawking assumed that a black hole radiates, contrary to what is claimed in general relativity. So this was purely quantum effect. But to show that this quantum effect exists at all and to compute it qualitatively, it was necessary to use quantum field theory. But quantum field theory in curved spacetime does not exist yet. There are fundamental conceptual problems of this theory. So all of these computations concerning Hawking radiation of black holes are made in various quasi-classical approximations. These derivations are many, a lot of such calculations, but they are all approximations. The same holds if we look at inflation, because inflation must be a quantum field in a curved space-time, but because we cannot make a computation in this theory because it does not exist, so all models assume some versions of quasi-classical approximation. So it is an assumption that the quantum aspects of the field are irrelevant. We treat it almost as a classical field. But still, it is this quasi-classical approximation is reliable, assuming that it is used usually in quantum field theory because this approximation is much easier in computation than rigorous calculations in the framework of quantum field theory. So assuming that you are in the validity domain of quantum field theory, we can make various quasi-classical approximations. And these calculations are, at least to some extent, are reliable. But as concerns inflation, all these quasi-classical approximations are made far beyond the domain, the validity domain of quantum field theory. So all these models are, in fact, strictly speaking, are unreliable, or at least their reliability is unclear. So what is really done is first, inflationary field, inflaton is treated as a classical scalar field. In fact, there is almost no quantum concepts. Then people take equations describing evolution of inflaton, and the fact that the space-time is curved and time varying is just that it is included in this form that we take the equation which this inflaton should satisfy in flat space-time and just replace Minkowski flat metric by Robertson-Walker metric. So these equations, the scale factor appears. This procedure is fully reasonable according to, if we consider classical fields, for example, if we consider classical electrodynamics, then we take Maxwell equations and just insert Kurt's metric instead of Minkowski metric, and it is fully correct. But inflaton is interesting if it is a quantum field, because what we in fact we take into account that this quantum field has a quantum fluctuations. It is also the specific feature of quantum fields. They have fluctuations. Classical fields have no fluctuations, and these quantum fluctuations are necessary. It turns out that because they provide so-called scale invariant density perturbation. Perturbations of energy density, and these perturbations provide seeds for galaxies. So in this sense, we cannot neglect quantum structure of inflaton. We cannot say that it is classical field, because what is most interesting in it are quantum fluctuations. But we don't have a consistent quantum dynamics for this field. So this is the problem. Then, assuming that we use some this quasi-classical approximation, the question is whether the inflaton dynamics is uniquely determined. What does it mean? It means that because we have this inflaton only for purposes in cosmology, we know nothing about its self-interaction. Most fields we know from the standard model of elementary particles have some self-interactions, and these self-interactions are usually described by a potential. And theory says that a given field has a given potential. For instance, well, electromagnetic field is in this sense is exceptional because it's a linear field. It has no potential. But for instance, we have potential for Young-Mills fields, which are basis of elementary particle theory. So physics says what is the potential for each field. In the case of inflaton, physics says nothing about it because physics does not need this field. So this means that we can take any potential any potential as you wish. So this means that we can have infinite number of inflationary models. So this is and here appears moreover so-called fine-tuning problem. Fine-tuning problem says that inflation to work, it means that first give us this inflationary expansion, then to terminate. This inflaton field requires very specific potential. This specific potential stress has no motivation in physics because physics does not need inflaton. So this means that we must have a very specific potential for the inflaton just to obtain inflation which is acceptable in the sense that it expands space and solves these problems and then terminates. We are not living in inflationary epoch because otherwise we would not exist. So this shows that, for instance, that inflaton cannot be Higgs field. That this potential must be fine-tuned, especially to this graceful exit to terminate the inflation. However, these requirements that this potential must be very specific, they do not determine it uniquely. So this means that we can have a large number, how large it is unknown, a large number of different potentials which are very specific. Each of them is very specific and each of them gives a model of inflation which is acceptable from the cosmological viewpoint. So in this sense, we must have a very specific potential without any physical motivation. Moreover, such specific potential are quite copious. So we have a multitude of models. So it is this typical objection against inflation that inflaton potential seems to be just an ad hoc contrivance to accommodate almost any data obtainable. So we have these three problems. Well, so these are problems. Now, what are the benefits of inflation? Why we should deal with inflation at all? And after inflation appeared in the early 80s, I am not talking about, no time to discuss its history because it is moreover very complicated without optimistic end. So something completely different ideas were at the beginning. It was strongly believed that inflation solves the horizon problem. You saw that it is a pseudo solution because in fact assumes what should be obtained by inflation as concerns smoothing out irregularities. So the main purpose of inflation's main benefit is that it predicts the initial conditions for formation of structures. It means formation of structure. It means the formation of galaxies. So it provides this inflation driven by quantum inflaton assumes that there are fluctuations, quantum fluctuations of inflaton. These fluctuations form seeds for structure formation, and these fluctuations are scale invariant, what is necessary, and what seems to be consistent with observations, and these fluctuations have only two adjustable parameters. These parameters must be chosen usually from potential. This is the spectral index of this perturbation, their amplitude. So the conclusion is, it's a fine sentence which I have taken from an article. This is a real strength of inflation, and there is no real alternative to it for the origin of galaxies. So whatever we say critical about inflation, many people believe it and defend it, because there is no up to now there is no alternative to it if we wish to explain what is the origin of galaxies. Well, and for the end, these were benefits. Now to say something about criticism. The inflation appeared in 1981, so now it's 36 years after its advent. So using historical arguments, we should say that it is the highest time to have a good, convincing model of inflation. However, no such model exists because of these troubles which I have said, that it should be a quantum field. We have no quantum theory for such a field. You have no indication what should be the nature of this field. And we only may see, it seems that we see consequences of action of this field. It is it's too little to recover in an unambiguous way the properties of inflaton. Moreover, this is the reason why there are so many models. For instance, there are very famous so-called primordial and chaotic inflation. Here, this is because we still have no convincing model of inflation, physically convincing model. The number of people who criticize the idea of inflation is growing up. Some people claim that the inflation is a paradigm of modern cosmology. Some others claim that it is a pure myth of cosmology, very beneficial myth, but nevertheless only a myth without deeper physical motivation. I wish to quote here two authors. One of them is Paul Steinhardt. This is an important person because he was one of the founders of inflation. In the early 80s, he was a founder of so-called new inflation. After many years, he became critical, and now he's one of the strongest critics of inflation. And he says that one of the models of inflation, so-called chaotic inflation, giving rise to multiverse. The multiverse is a crazy idea. And he says it is a critical flaw in the inflationary paradigm. And also, this assertion concerns chaotic inflation, but Steinhardt claims that other models, simpler models, not so ambitious models of inflation, are also incorrect. Then the other critic is Roger Penrose, famous mathematician and physicist, and a very well-known, very famous book, Road to Reality. He stresses that inflation requires very specific initial conditions. So they are extremely specific conditions, it is unphysical. And he says, sorry, there is something fundamentally misconceived about trying to explain the uniformity of the early universe as resulting from a thermalization process. For if the thermalization is actually doing anything, then it represents a definite increasing of entropy. Thus, the universe would have been even more special before the thermalization than after. This means that
Then there is nothing wrong with that. Why Roger think is wrong?
definitely, because it means that thermalization means that you have the physical system which has the highest possible entropy. So this is the most typical. But this means that if you start from the state which is not thermalized and go to thermalized, it means that that your initial conditions are much more specific. It means
What's wrong with that?
well, but this is the problem of specific conditions. If you say that there is a physical law which says that the universe was created with a very specific initial conditions, then it is okay. But you must have a physical law which says that universe should have at the beginning very specific conditions. This is the problem. This is only this problem. You should have a specific law which says the universe was created very specific.
We need a new theory, that's all.
There's no such theory. No such theory.
Okay.
Yeah. So this is the problem. This is the problem. And the idea of this smoothing out was the absolutely opposite. It was the universe starts as a irregular, generic solution, but in this sense with a small entropy, and then it gets smoothed out and the entropy increases.
Yeah.
But this means that entropy was small.
Yeah.
And this is strange because why the universe at the beginning had a small entropy. This is the generic problem. Okay, so time is over. So this is the end of my talk. So you see that. So the very generic conclusion would be that there are many people who believe in inflation because it is necessary in this sense. There's no alternative to inflation if we wish to understand what is the origin of galaxies. But if we look at the physical nature of this inflation, we see that it is very, very unclear, and we should be suspicious of it. Thank you.
I want to ask a question about derivative of module of omega minus 1.
Okay, we will.
It's like slide number 29 or 28.
Well, at the moment it means, well, it was the beginning of it.
Okay.
Yeah, it's here.
Yeah.
Because you have here, you have this formula. You take modulus, so in fact k is replaced by 1. Then you take just a derivative and you obtain this expression.
I want to ask the physical meaning of the positive and negative derivatives of R and second derivative of R.
Well, the physical meaning is that observationally we see that the universe is expanding, so R must be positive. The observation, there's no need in physics that the universe expands and not collapses. So this is just the observation. Then second derivative of R is negative. This is it's not observation, in fact, it comes only from theory, because we have so-called strong energy condition. Strong energy condition which says that the energy of matter should be positive, and moreover it should be, the pressure should be non-negative. The pressure should be non-negative, and that physically it is very reasonable, because we have either positive pressure or zero, for instance, matter is dust. if the pressure is non-negative, you show from the deceleration equation coming from Einstein equations, just from Robertson-Walker spacetime, you get that B's must be negative.
And when we were talking about solution of flatness problem, these they were all positive, yes?
Yes, because according to, and if you take standard cosmology, if R is, say, is T2 power less than 1, its second derivative is negative. So this is then you see that this expression you obtain that this is positive, so the function is growing. If you have inflation, you again have R dot positive, but also RB is positive. Then this expression is, because this minus sign is negative, so this means that this function is decreasing. So you start from omega minus 1, very different from 0, and this function goes, during inflation, goes to 0. So at the end of inflation, omega minus 1 is practically equal 0. Then it grows in standard cosmology, but slowly, so that at 1 second it is just this formula. But this is, in this sense you need inflation to solve this problem.
Thank you.
I have a question about the horizon problem, because as I understand, the inflation made at least observed CMB to thermalized or smooth, but in general, on the bigger scales, it can be still somehow inhomogeneous. Yes?
Yes, of course, but the horizon problem concerns only what is observable. This observable universe. We observe that the earliest time is the recombination epoch. We see this relic sky, and we see that it is homogeneous. What occurred earlier, to me, we don't know. We don't know. Perhaps if we go to earlier times, then the universe was highly irregular. But observationally, we wish to explain why at the recombination, at least this part of the universe which you observe, this relic sky, is exactly homogeneous and isotropic. Only this one. What is further, it is unclear.
So there is no reason to assume that in 5 billion years it will be still smooth. CMB, yes?
In the future, well, I understand that, well, it should be, because, well, of course, if there were some process which smoothed out the universe only in this region which we observe now, and outside there is irregular, of course, then in the future we will see these irregular regions. But we should say why there was a process which could smooth out just this region which we observe, and could not smooth out other objects. So this is the problem, whether there's a process mechanism of smoothing out. It seems that without inflation, there is impossible such a process. But inflation as it is now only does not solve still does not solve the problem, because it works, what is computed is only in Robertson-Walker spacetime, where there is no problem at all. And if we take a generic solution, there are no computations. Nobody can show that inflation in a generic spacetime would work. So in this sense, the problem is completely open.
Thank you. So, thanks for Skowalski. Present time for